something I heard growing up was stuff like, oh, well, you shouldn't bother trying to be an artist because an artist, like, painting, right? Or drawing, because you'll never make it a living. Or like, don't become an author because, and I always thought that was bullshit. And the reason I thought it was bullshit, because, you'd have this paired with like, you can be anything you want to be, except everything you might want to be.
The paradox.
Right? Yeah. And I thought that was bullshit because my approach was like, well, in every single one of those disciplines, there is at least one person making an insane amount of money. And so to me, what that meant was you can go into anything you want to do and you can make a living off of it. You can make a really good living off of it, but you have to be the best. Right. And if you've kind of paid attention to my story, trying to be the best at something is pretty frequently built into there. I don't always succeed, but I think like these things coming together just really meant for me growing up. It's like, cool, you want to be a writer? You have an equal opportunity to be a writer as everyone else. The difference is, will you try to be the best writer or who has a job? They're different things.
For people who didn't catch that, is that, do you want to have a job or do you want to be the best writer? Basically, the analogy here is that, do you want to get lost in perfection or get the job done? Because sometimes just getting the job done is more important.
Oh, yeah. In business, right? Like it's literally my day job is about getting the job done and not being perfect, because perfect means I'll never get it done. But going back to something you said earlier about, I think you mentioned this, about always learning, always practicing your craft. You may not have the opportunity to focus on the job to be perfect, right? But the act of seeking perfection is I believe, a really strong motivator. And people who do that, who spend the time to do that, path and satisfaction they're looking for, they get the monetary reward that they're looking for, quality of life, because they go further and they do more than, air quotes here, everyone else who is also doing it. Somebody has to win, right? And the spoils are usually quite good for the winner. So why not have that be you?
There are two really good points there. One is that, especially as when I was a young designer, and this is for other young designers and creative people listening, is that you get kind of stuck in perfecting the work because you want to prove yourself. Whereas I feel now in retrospect, it's the volume of work that I did and just the repetition of the work that I did that got me to a level that other people might feel is perfection. The other thing there is that you grew up in North America. I grew up in India, North India. Yeah. And at that time, India is so different culturally and financially. Everything was so different. So I didn't have any inspiration around me in terms of people that I could look at and say, oh, look, that person's a designer and they drive a nice car. They live in a good house. They live a good life. And I couldn't find any examples of successful artists. All artists around me were just like doing 3 other jobs to sustain themselves.
It's interesting, though, people who do creative acts as a vocation. Someone pays me to build a product, right? There's a creative path there. Someone pays you to create a brand. There's a creative path there. That always seems at odds with art, right? As two separate sort of things. Art for art's sake, if you will, and what we do for business sake. But here's the interesting thing. I have heard it say that a sculptor works on a piece of stone, not to sculpt the stone, but to remove the unnecessary stone from the slab, right? Like the stone knows what it wants to be, and you're just helping the stone, right? And so the thing is, I'm thinking about you, and I'm thinking about, okay, well, if you're helping a company or a person come up with a brand or identity or a strategy, they already know what they want. Your job is to help pull away pieces of the stone, as it were, to help them achieve this vision they have, right? It's not your vision. It's their vision. And so there is a sort of a really interesting parallel, if you want to look at it this way, between the artist and the professional who is in a creative vocation, to say, like, these are kind of the same things. You could say the outcome is you now have a beautiful statue by a master carver, or you have a beautiful brand, beautiful packaging, beautiful product. You still have the same outcome on both sides.